Democracy isn't about abstract, false, clear choices. Democracy is extremely complex. It is extremely concrete. It's about constantly choosing, finding, developing practical options within the common good, constantly searching for how to express in a practical way the common good, not in some grand way, some grand and absolute way, but in a very practical way. How can the common good be put in place?
Internationally acclaimed essayist and novelist John Ralston Saul is the only Canadian included in the Utne Readers list of the world's 100 leading thinkers and visionaries. Saul's wit, candor, and acumen make for a lively and controversial experience for the audience. He lectures on many subjects such as achieving equilibrium as responsible leaders with our community, the fragility of civil society, what are the 6 key human qualities and how can we use them, rendering ethics normal, economics and religion, morality versus ethics, universal public education, individualism in a collective society, globalization and democracy. Saul describes himself. My favorite way of communicating ideas is talking to an audience. There's a kind of oral thing that happens when you have an audience, which is more interesting than what you could say to a journalist. It's because you're actually speaking to people as individuals rather than as fellow writers.
So what we've done is taken the economic power out of the nations and put it at the international level. And we've left all the other powers, the binding powers, inside the nations, which means we've put all the non-economic powers, at a severe disadvantage. And that's why we're finding today that democracy feels as if it's been turned on its head, as if it has no teeth, as if it has no power, as if it can only react. Because we've engaged in, since we elected a number of governments, all of us, we've engaged in a form of almost unconscious suicide by allowing these enormously important powers to escape from our hands to the international arena without before, let alone at the same time, getting equivalent binding powers for the common good at the international level. The result is disequilibrium, the disequilibrium which we're living at the moment. The result is an artificial creation of instability, the instability which we're living.
John Ralston Saul's philosophical trilogy, Voltaire's Bastards, The Doubter's Companion, and The Unconscious Civilization, has had a growing impact on political thought in many countries. His books have achieved international acclaim and have been published in 12 languages. He has won many awards, including Italy's top literary award for his most recent novel, The Paradise Eater, and Canada's Governor-General's Literary Award for The Unconscious Civilization. Reflections of a Siamese Twin was chosen by Maclean's magazine as one of the 10 best non-fiction books of the century. The process of seeking equilibrium is the essence of civilization. This sounds simple enough. Why is it then that social structures seem so often to discourage us from acting in this way? Is it precisely because the need is ongoing, without resolution? Because non-resolution is a complex way to live? Is it a fear of uncertainty, or an impatience with uncertainty? Let me ask the question in a grander way. Why does Western civilization have so much trouble embracing its own genius, its own humanism?
Globalization and new technology, these are the cliches repeated daily, mean that the normal borders of the nation-state are finished. And in fact, you constantly hear people saying now in one paragraph, saying, democracy won over communism, I assume. And then about 2 sentences later, the nation-state is dead, with enormous thrill, as if finally we got rid of the nation-state, completely forgetting that the only place in which democracy exists is inside the nation-state. Just a minor point. So that, we have this kind of mythology that we are, thanks in part to new technology, we're escaping to this great international ground where we won't need the problems of the nation-state. Whereas, in fact, if we escape to this great international ground, we haven't put anything in place, anything, to pick up the work, the guarantees, the egalitarianism, the access, which was made possible through democracy.
John Ralston Saul holds a PhD from King's College in London, England, and is the recipient of 13 honorary doctorates. He is a Chevalier in the Ordre des Arts et des Lettres of France and a Companion in the Order of Canada. He is the recipient of the first Canadian Teachers Federation Public Education Advocacy Award.
The sales of 200 companies represent 28.3% of the world's GDP. I always wonder who does these numbers, you know. I just pick them up. I have a theory, you know, if you can take a number, a statistic, and you can either have it or double it, and it's still shocking, and you can use it.
And what we've seen increasingly over the last century and a half is this rise of corporatism, which is a model of society, an alternate to democracy, a very powerful idea, a very strong idea, which says that the legitimacy lies with interest groups. Everybody exists by belonging to a group, a specialist group, an interest group, postmodern novelists, economists, various kinds of business people, interviewers on television. You know, we all exist through our profession in a sense. And in that sense, we are castrated as individuals. We're unable to speak out as individuals. We only speak out as members of our group. Then you run society on the basis of negotiations between the groups.
John Ralston Saul's books have been on bestseller lists in Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and France. Here's what the critics have to say. Saul has decided to take the axe to the root and to challenge the assumption that our method is one of rational choice. It's unlikely Saul will be forced to drink hemlock, but supporters of the status quo may suggest it. Voltaire's Bastards is perhaps the most important modern book I've read. Saul is an Enlightenment-style provocateur, a cosmopolitan anti-ideologue. Blessed with a rapier wit and a vehement belief in the power of language, John Ralston Saul's quirky style and provocative manner both challenge and charm his international audiences. His mission is to stimulate and inform so that in arming themselves with knowledge and doubt, people can wage war against hopelessness and blind acceptance.
International treaties based on theories which are not built upon the idea of the citizen are anti-democratic. Democracy requires putting economics, self-interest, which we need, in a subsidiary position. That's the best recipe for stable prosperity. Democracy requires a careful identification of reality and of our limitations, a careful rebalancing of priorities at the international level, binding agreements, re the public good at the international level. These are the practical elements which enabled us to build over 150 years, 200 years, 250 years, to build the democratic nation states. And it's precisely those same practical elements which will enable us to build stable, fair, citizen-based global arrangements. Thank you very much.